Thank you guys for joining. In today's session, I have with me Ahmedullah Aziz. He is a assistant professor at University of Tennessee at Knoxville. I know him pretty well. Thanks for coming to the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Can you give me a little bit intro about yourself? What are you doing right now?
Yes, absolutely. So, like you said, I'm currently an assistant professor in Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Prior to that, I received my PhD from Purdue University and master's in electrical engineering from Penn State. And I'm obviously originally from Bangladesh. I
Mhm.
received my undergraduate education from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. I went to Tripoli Electrical and Electronic Engineering department, and that's pretty much the recent update. Before coming to the US for graduate education, I worked in Samsung R&D Institute very briefly for about a year and a half, and then I decided to come to grad school.
Okay. Yep.
Um, I'm
Yeah.
originally from the, Dhaka. I was born and raised in Dhaka, the capital.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So now, yeah, I already amazed actually based on your already all the achievement you have already done. Can you give me a little bit of ideas of how that transition occurs from like your early life? So, like you said, you studied at Buet in Tripoli, and so how does that transition work from like studying in Bangladesh University and come to USA? Was it really hard for you, or what is the current situation?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a that's a great question actually, because this is a story that varies across people. Everyone has their own stories. For me, it was more driven by my friends,
Okay.
honestly, because at Buet, most of my friends and colleagues, they started discussing getting to grad school or even in different parts of the world at a very early stage, even when we were like midway uh, in our bachelors, basically. So I knew that you had to take GRE and TOEFL exams and do some publications here and there if possible. So we kind of had an idea about what it takes to get to good schools in the US. But I wouldn't say that I was prepared, to be honest, because I was just casually thinking about it, but I never really tried to prepare too hard. But some of my friends did, which is great if you can manage to. But there is always other parts of life that you have to handle. So it may not be possible always to start very early. So my preparation started when I joined Samsung and then started working on it on projects. And back home, I didn't really have too much to do. So I started preparing with GRE and TOEFL, specifically for GRE and TOEFL, just in case. I didn't really know when I will apply,
Okay.
but thankfully I was able to take this test soon enough, and then I was ready with scores, and I was able to catch up to a session that I didn't really originally plan for. As you know, there is always this August time frame when people start applying, and then you have to apply for next year. So thankfully, I was able to apply along with many of my friends. And I think the biggest motivation factor was that most of my friends were leaving anyways. So
Okay. Okay.
it's kind of like peer pressure, right? Obviously, I think the newer generations have much better idea about the whole world than me. Uh, Nowadays, there's a lot of sources to get news, get information, specifically from multiple Facebook groups and other social media channels where people share their experiences, like for example what we are doing here today. But for me, the sources were mostly senior brothers and sisters and other colleagues. So I applied to multiple universities, got a few offers, and then I chose to come to Penn State specifically. I really liked the program and the professor who took my interview. I had a lot of overlap with him. So I think one of the biggest factor that helped me was not really GRE or TOEFL. It's pretty much something that you have to have. But the most important factor for me was, excuse me, I had a few publications
Okay.
during my undergrad, working with some of my friends, closest friends. And obviously, they deserve equal credit for all those publications. And I was just on a supporting role, but at least having exposure or early exposure to publication really helped. The my During my interview, we didn't have Zoom at the time. We used to do Skype interview,
Mhm.
and almost 50% of the questions were related to the publications that we had at the time. So that's like higher level how my journey worked. going through regular standardized testing, GRE, TOEFL, applying for universities, then getting a few interviews, eventually choosing one to come.
Okay. Yep, that's great to hear. So, but do you suggest for the like current students more focus on the like project or actually the publication part if they are interested in higher studies?
Yes, so there is a spectrum, depends on who you talk to. I wouldn't say that every professor who's hiring for graduate students will expect publications from students. I can, you know, confidently say that having substandard publications will never help. That's
Okay.
for sure. Because I've seen that this is typically a red flag. It's much better not to have any publications than to have some in a shady venues where people can easily understand that these are not really good venues or not selective. So I'm not asking anybody to publish in Nature or other fancy venues. But as long as, for example, for those of the students who are from electrical background, there is this institute called IEEE.
Yeah, I think.
For computer science, there is ACM. I'm sure for mechanical engineering, every engineering disciplines or other disciplines have their own scholarly society, and they conduct some competitive conferences and obviously maintain some journals. Uh, at the very least, I think it's better to publish there. And I have seen over many years that people try to go after numbers, but honestly, that's not what others are after. They're looking at this stage, they're looking
Quality
for
of work,
quality.
basically.
Yes, quality of work. So even one single paper that is well thought of, it doesn't have to change the world. All my fellow colleagues and I look for is this experience of going through the process. How do you make figures? How do you express your ideas and results in a format that sounds like a story, right? So obviously nobody has the time to read the papers because faculty members or others who hire, they get hundreds of emails, and how many of them can they actually actively check? Not many, but they can skim over the resume, and then if there is one or two publications that really help. That's my understanding, and I know that many universities across the US, they have waived the restriction regarding GRE and TOEFL scores. Some of them don't even require GRE and TOEFL anymore, including ours, for example. However, and that really happened during COVID and post-COVID era, because they know that people couldn't take standardized tests anymore because of social distancing. And when you stop something, it's very difficult to start again.
Start again. Yeah.
So that's the reason why the departments have still kept this waiver. However, many faculty members, when they hire, they still have this in the back of their mind in a way that they're used to seeing this course. Now, if they get 10 student applications and one of them has this course, they feel much better hiring those students if they are comparable. So I personally recommend, if possible, still try to take it. I know it's a lot of logistics. It's obviously it's not free, and depends on where you are. Spending dollars could be difficult, but if you can afford to do so, it may not be a bad idea to have this.
Okay, yep. Yeah, that reminds me of my GRE. So, yep, I spent like a lot of time preparing for GRE exam. So, and then at that time, so the only way I can get a funding, if I get a like GRE, good GRE score and TOEFL score. So, I can share my journey. So, after my bachelor, I applied for few universities. I got my master's admission, but I didn't get any funding. So, I thought I can't come to USA at that time because I don't have funding. So then I started reaching out to the professor. They said, okay, you need to have like PhD funding, otherwise you can't come, right? So then actually I retook the actually GRE for a higher score, did the TOEFL again, and then also at that time I was doing my master's in BUET. So when I had that profile that I had completed my master's with the publications, I had GRE score and TOEFL scores, which is comparable. At that time, I'm talking about like 2010, right? So that was like pretty much on the card. If you don't have GRE, TOEFL, you are not getting any funding from USA. It was really hard. But yeah, I think situation changed a little bit. But yeah, the good thing about GRE, I would like to share that actually it prepares you for the hard thing in your life, because in USA everything is hard when you are coming from different countries, and then it prepares you how hard it can be if you can learn 3,000, 4,000 English word outside of your English knowledge, what you don't use day to day. If you can become accustomed to these, most likely you will be able to figure out all the things necessary later.
Yes,
I just wanted to share my journey as well on the GRE side. So I would like to know actually from the international student perspective that actually outside of GRE, TOEFL, and obviously the publication they can do.
Mm.
What are the things actually they can do in their undergrad, like when they are doing the coursework? Do they focus on more on the like getting good grade or actually good grasp of the that subject matter expert, or do they need to pick one area of that specific? For example, electrical, they have I would say there might be
Mm.
multiple focus areas, right? So do you suggest that they would like to focus on one area more than the other?
Yes. Well, I have a bunch of suggestions, and I hope I can cover most of them or the most important ones. So personally, I I think people should plan out sooner. Don't be like me, who had no idea initially. But I think people are much more informed, and they can be much more informed nowadays. So if you can, from the very early stage, try to plan out the course projects. For example, like throughout our undergraduate education, we go through multiple projects, and most of these projects are like repetitive. Like people have been doing this every year, the same project. I don't know, like depending on which discipline you are, line follower robots or LED here and there. So like pretty standard projects. But given an option, try to find something that is novel in a way that hasn't been done. Okay. So for example, if you and I'm taking completely random examples here. So if you're making another robotic hand, and people have been making robotic hands for like 20 years now, and you're just following along the same pathway that others followed, you are getting grades. It's helping you get a good grade, but it's not helping you do anything else. So if you could inject some degree of novelty, I know it's difficult to do at a very early stage, like second year or first year, but do what you can. And I'm speaking to the future students here, or whoever is going through the undergraduate education right now. If they can take this a little bit hurdle to inject some novelty in their existing work and projects, it will not be publishable. I'm not saying that you can just publish another robotic hand. It is going to be an uphill battle to do that. However, that habit of injecting novelty and looking for new directions and new options, new algorithm, new hardware design, new optimization will probably stay with them. And when they get towards their senior years, like third and fourth year, hopefully it will be easier for them to find new direction in a completely new topic. So it's about building up the habit. It doesn't happen overnight. Like we arrive at fourth year and we decide all on a sudden that I'm going to do some research. Like everything else in life, it requires practice and it requires perseverance. It requires some, training as well. And I don't think anybody can train. I mean, I might be wrong, but you cannot really train somebody into doing a researcher. This inquisitive mindset builds up gradually, and people naturally becomes, a researcher, like by exploring questions to, answers to questions. Now, that's one direction. And I would be lying if I say that CGPA doesn't matter, although I would love to say that. And this matters in a very strange way. Here is how. An interesting analogy would be in SSC and HSC exam level in Bangladesh, for example, the number of GPA 5 holders, right? It's huge. Especially in recent years, I've seen like almost everybody gets a GPA 5. Like most of them gets it. But does that really change anything eventually? Probably not, because no matter who you look at around you, has a GPA 5, probably. So it's kind of like something that you have to have for good schools. So the good schools, they are used to getting applications with higher CGPA. Now, if you're one of those outliers who have low CGPA all on a sudden, there is a chance that you might be automatically filtered out. So when the faculty members are looking at, they're probably ranking them depending on however they prefer, highest CGPA to lowest CGPA, whatever. If that happens, then you're probably going down, you know, multiple pages actually. And well, I'm not saying it's not possible to do so, but it will probably reduce your chances. Maybe you're going from top 20 to top 50, or top 50 to top 100 eventually, or top 100 to R2 schools. So obviously, depends on, you'll not be hired based on your CGPA. Here is why, because nobody can compare a CGPA of 4 out of 4 from Bangladesh with a CGPA of 3.8 out of 4 from a different country, right? So, and even within Bangladesh, different institutes have different ranges of CGPA that they are used to seeing. And oftentimes, for example, if they know someone, if a faculty member at a university has a connection, imagine they're trying to hire someone from Nepal, and they have a colleague, faculty colleague or industry colleague who they know to be from Nepal, it doesn't hurt that if they're seriously considering their student, they will probably just call them up or send a message. Hey, what do you think of these students? And it happens to us all the time, especially with Bangladeshi students. When I know a colleague personally, they don't hesitate to reach out to me to ask about that student. What do you think about this institution? Do you know this institution? Because I've never heard about it. Looks like it's a very high CGPA, but I have some other concern. And most of the times they reach out about the conference. Hey, I see this student published a couple of papers in this local conference. What do you think about this conference? Well, the way it helps them is they don't have to keep asking me or anybody else every time for every student. They keep notes, meaning, oh, this conference is, lower class conference. So I'll keep that in mind. And it stays with them. Or this institute is particularly good. Okay, it doesn't always have to be XYZ Institute. PQR, the other institute, is also good, which I had no idea about. So this type of information sharing always helps. So in general, just to summarize what I've done, what I've said so far, obviously CGPA matters. I would say do the best you can, but don't use it as an excuse to not apply or not try. For example, if you have 3.5, you can get into good schools. But obviously, if you have 3.75 above, you can get into better school. If you have 3.9 above, you can still get into good, like much better schools. But nothing guarantees entry. It gives you a better chance, right? That's just my personal take. But if you're one of the students who happen to have somehow messed up the CGPA for whatever reason, don't be the, I mean, don't let it be the reason for you to not try. Uh, and then, did I miss any other part of your
No, I
question?
think
Or
yep.
is
So
that
you actually covered most of them. Yep.
okay?
So yep.
Perfect.
So yeah, I want to share my thing as well. So my CGPA was less than 3.5. So that was not the reason actually I haven't tried. And one thing I want to
Mm.
add, you said about the project, right? So good thing about, like, I was always into electronics. So our 4-bit microprocessor, I built the whole thing by hand. And then actually in 2007 for interfacing project, we built actually smart room, which actually controls all the sensor, photo sensor and everything, right?
Yeah.
We create even a door, miniature door. You can call it, open the door, it can open those things. So two things I want to call out from here, that actually, yeah, CGPA matters, but so even if you lower CGPA, there is a whole lot of world you can achieve. And then inquisitive mindset, what you talked about, because that my, like, interfacing project, a smart room, what we built a smart room like 2007, which Google built like around 2022, right? The same smart home with all the sensor and
Absolutely.
everything. So that inquisitive mindset helped me a lot to try out new things about outside of education, outside of my research area, my job and everything. So yeah, keep that in your head, on your head, if you are really curious. That really helps. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I want to know a little bit more interesting things, because you studied at Buet and then worked there a couple of years in Bangladesh, then came to Penn State University, then you did your PhD from Purdue, and now you're working at like University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So you have experience, vast knowledge of experience about different universities in, like,
Mm.
USA and also in Bangladesh. So what do you see? What is the, like, education mechanism, or what is the difference between each of the universities, or what do you see that the quality students have in common in those all these universities?
Yes, absolutely. Well, to be very honest, I remember the hardest the hardest university to get into was Buet for me, because as you can imagine, we live in a country with hundreds of millions of people, and we have only a few universities that offer education. Unlike the US, where every state has multiple universities which are well ranked and uh, in general very good. So it was difficult to get into. So I'm very fortunate that I was able to get into that. But the other ones, it was more like kind of like a chain reaction. For example, you use whatever you did in the previous institution, you show that, and you get to the other one. So for me, my transition from Penn State to Purdue was super easy because my advisor moved from Penn State to Purdue, and he took me with him. So basically, he took a couple of students with him when he moved from Penn State to Purdue, and I was one of them. The move was anytime you move, it's a little bit difficult to settle down in a new place, but I think it was worth it. I really enjoyed and learned a lot from the environment at Purdue. I have a feeling that the uh, well, the quality of courses and the teaching is quite different between multiple universities. For example, good thing about Purdue was I was able to get exposure to visionary teachers whom I followed all my life, and I
Yeah.
was able to attend their classes. So it was really, really amazing experience. And the other thing is, if you get into good schools, they have a structure in place which help you succeed, and more importantly, they have a very strong alumni network. When you see this alumni succeeding in their own fields and coming to give talks every year, it encourages you to do something better. Although I didn't, like, the jobs that I got, I didn't really have to reach out to any specific alumni network, but I was always inspired by them. For example, Penn State, probably my understanding is they have the largest alumni network in the world across all universities. So that tells you something. Purdue has equally strong and active alumni base, so that it's kind of like reputation building. So wherever I go, I find someone. Like whenever I interviewed, find someone from these universities, like either the dean or the department head or some other colleagues who are from there, and they will have a very different conversation with you, like, hey, how is this guy doing, blah blah blah, right? So there's some common connection. That helps a lot. Obviously, if you're part of a bigger network, that always helps a lot. And I personally feel that the way the teaching materials were prepared and delivered is very different in US, especially because education is so expensive. The undergraduate education is extremely expensive. I mean, those of you who know, or like you can just Google it, how expensive it is. Like, what is the tuition amount for every university? It is unbelievable. As opposed to that, my undergraduate education was free, pretty much free. I basically, like many others, we used to get money to study essentially. So, I mean, I think we have been fortunate not needing to spend even a single dollar for my undergraduate education. But now, when we teach at these institutions, we see how much money these students spend. Their parents often save. Uh, I don't know, like 50,000, $60,000 over their lifetime for each of their kids at the very least. And then if they're going for fancy universities like Ivy League, it is going to be way more than that. So there comes an obligation to deliver, you know, equal quality for the money they're spending. Because if you don't teach well, there is accountability for sure. So every time, every semester after we teach, we get feedback from the students, and these feedbacks actually matter. And people make changes based on the feedback that they get. So that's the culture, I think, especially in public universities in Bangladesh. Uh, at least when I was there was no feedback process. Like we could never rate any course or any instructor that, hey, I really like so and so, or I don't like so and so. I think this is how you can improve. I mean, the opinion from the students were never counted. I'm sure some of the private universities do that, but I don't know if everybody does it, or how impactful or important this feedback are, or is it just a formality, or is it, are they really taken seriously? So I have a feeling that uh, establishing such a structure where student feedback will be taken into account for further improvement will help. uh, and I have a feeling that the culture of research active faculty, I think the students learn much more by working as volunteers with faculty members around campus than in classroom, because everybody is getting the same material, same set of slides, same textbook, same lectures, and sometimes lecture recording, so they can learn on their own. And even in today's world, you have YouTube videos. If you don't like a particular lecture, you can watch a different lecture from a different professor at a different university. So I don't think lectures make the difference. The differences will be made by engaging and involving yourself with faculty members who are working on different topics of research. And by working as volunteers, they get exposed to the real life. And my understanding is you can never teach the most cutting edge, especially in some disciplines which are very advanced and rapidly growing. Like, for example, electrical engineering, computer science. I'm sure every discipline has their own pace. I'm not knowledgeable about all the disciplines, but at electrical engineering, I remember when I started teaching back in 2019, the stuff that I used to call cutting edge are no longer cutting edge. They are not even second generation anymore. They're third generation. So within 6, 7 years, things changed so rapidly that I cannot keep up. I cannot keep updating my teaching materials every year. Textbooks don't change every year. Obviously, it takes many years to write a textbook, and then it has to run for several years until you think of making a new edition. So textbooks will never catch up with the cutting edge. So if you want to learn the cutting edge or get exposed to the cutting edge, it's the only way, in my opinion, and that is to get engaged in research with some faculty members. So I think that is the unparalleled experience that institutes in the US provide to their undergrads and graduate students alike.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, thanks for sharing. So, yeah, I was also lucky to actually got admitted in BUET. So, yeah, almost free education. That was really helpful. But yeah, as you mentioned, actually, it was really competitive in Bangladesh to get into BUET. So, I would like to know one more thing about. So, we are running out of time, but so would like to know a couple more things. One thing, obviously, in this AI relevant era. So, what do you see actually? What are the differences? Most of the students in electrical and computer science, some of them I see they are fearful about their future, about their software engineering job, or even like any engineering related job. So what is your opinion about this one, and how are you seeing that actually this situation is changing over the time in the place of new AI
Yes,
tools?
that's probably the question of the day, honestly. Like everybody is thinking about it everywhere, not just in Bangladesh, everywhere. Even in the US, that many people, actually tens of thousands of people, are losing their jobs to AI, obviously, because AI systems are getting so powerful and, lifelike, honestly. So, again, nobody has the full answer to any of this, but I'll tell you my personal take to it. I have a feeling that things are supposed to change every few decades, every few years, right? I remember I heard this analogy from a different colleague. I remember there was a time when we used to have telephone operators. So you used to call a number and ask for an extension like 123, and somebody used to manually connect your line to
Yeah,
some other line, right? And those operators are gone because now everything is automated. So those jobs are obliterated. There was a time when there used to be elevator operator. So you get into an elevator and somebody presses the button for you
yeah,
because it was supposed to be a sophisticated machine, right? But not anymore. So those jobs, they used to be like thousands of them, they're gone. So things change every few decades, everywhere. But the only difference here is it's so large scale that instead of obliterating a few thousand, it's going to obliterate many hundreds of thousands of jobs. So, but there is a recent study that I saw in a paper where they ranked different types of jobs based on what AI can easily replace and what AI cannot. And most of these jobs that AI cannot replace, they are hands-on and mechanical kind of things. So I have a feeling that AI is only going to get better. And now that we have a race, it is going to get better rapidly. So the only way to get ahead of the curve would be to do something that is difficult, that is not repetitive. If something is repetitive, for example, and without any specific reason, say if you're into coding, for example, AI can also code. And if you are not doing something super unique, it is easier to replace you with AI. So the easiest solution is to don't do something easy. Try to don't look for the easiest route anymore. There was a time when you could do that. For example, web developers. I know that there are a lot of people who learned developing web for outsourcing work and things like that. But nowadays there are AI systems which will make a website in like few minutes. Actually, you just and I mean I tried it myself. There are AI systems which will prepare uh, codes for you if you're not one of those companies who require the most optimized and safest code. You're just a small business. You're trying to make a software for your own business. It will help you make an app. So I know many people are using this nowadays. Now, this is only going to get better over years. So I have a feeling that hardware related jobs are still relatively safe, but I don't know how long they will be safe because people are employing AI systems for chip design as well. So hardware design is no longer out of the AI paradigm. So my personal opinion is it is very difficult to predict where AI is going to go next. But if you can get into a field that is unique and niche, plus something that takes specialized knowledge and hard work essentially, it is going to be difficult. First of all, AI could still probably do it, but the cost of using AI to do those stuff will probably be prohibitive as opposed to just writing a code or simple code. And I'm sure there are different levels of codes which AI cannot achieve in terms of optimization. And if you try to verify, there will be mistakes in the code, and you'll be spending more money verifying these codes than writing these codes. So people know these problems already. But if it is something simple that nobody else cares about, then it's probably easy to replace. And in terms of education, I have a feeling that it's not a good idea to choose a direction of you know coursework or education based on where the trend is. So today the trend might be towards software engineering or electrical engineering or some other engineering or some other discipline. But in 5 years, you don't know where the trend's going to be. Now, you ended up with a degree that you hated, but you still had to take because the trend was there. That's not a good feeling for your life. Maybe if you like, for example, if you love physics, sure, study physics. I know I'm not speaking about the practicality here, because in Bangladesh it is difficult to get a good job if you go through some discipline. So you have to go out of the country. Even in US, by the way, engineering disciplines get a lot of job prospect as opposed to others, and they know it. By the way, engineering faculty members, the faculty that work in different universities, their salary structure is very different as opposed to other arts and science colleges. So everybody recognizes it. But now, within the engineering discipline, you might like one over the other. And within electrical engineering, for example, there is electronics, there is communication, there is other direction, right? So if you really have a passion, I think it's better to pursue the passion and do the best you can in that direction, rather than just choosing a direction based on where the trend is. Because then when things change, you have all sorts of regrets. Why did I choose this path? I hate what I do. And then
Yep. That's actually good way to put it. So yeah, we are running out of time. Just I would like to know actually if any international students would like to reach out, what is the way they can reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. I think the easiest way would be to send me an email, and my email is very simple: aziz, that's my last name, at utk.edu. We also have, I mean, our website is also up, but I cannot keep it updated all the time. Like every once in a while, we update it. We also have a YouTube channel for the team where I upload free lectures. So I try to record all of my classes and upload them on YouTube just for the sake of the students, so that it reaches anybody who is interested. If anybody wants to listen to some of these lectures, you're welcome, or you can send me an email. If you have any questions about life in the US or coming to the US, I'll try to respond the best I can. Obviously, we get many emails. I cannot always respond. So I apologize in advance, but I will try to do my best to respond to the most important ones.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And then, for the viewers, if you are interested to Ajiz's lecture, go to YouTube and see some of the lectures and reach out to him. Any last advice before we wrap up?
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed the podcast, and I would suggest everybody to keep pushing. No matter where you are, if you are one of the students who are topping the class, or you're one of the mid rankers, or you have somebody somehow messed up, as you pointed out, it is always possible for you to find a parallel route to get to your dream, right? You don't always have to get to top 10, for example. It's not like only the people who get to top 10 succeeds in life. That couldn't be further than the truth. So do the best you can given your circumstances. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.